my name is Twana Harris, and I'm the head of diversity and inclusion at Exude. Over the course of my career, what I have found is that organizations have come to understand the value of inclusion and diversity. They understand that with an increasingly global workforce, that it is critical to create an environment where everybody feels a sense of belongingness, where everybody feels a sense of value. It is also important to the business to really make people comfortable to share their opinions, their perspectives, their experiences, because this is how you get innovation and growth in a business. Organizations also understand that it's very, very critical to make sure that you have the right people at the table when you're developing products or solutions for your customer base, and that your employees need to represent the communities where you do business and the customers that you have. So organizations are understanding that inclusion and diversity is much more critical to the business and the success of the business than ever before. The things that have not changed yet, unfortunately, is that the change is not happening fast enough. Oftentimes people have the commitment to diversity, but we don't see the action and the transition fast enough. And it's also unfortunate that organizations have not yet resolved the critical issues that cause EEOC complaints. You do that with learning and accountability. It is very important that an organization remain a learning organization, particularly when it comes to inclusion and diversity. You also do that by driving accountability, helping people to not only understand the concepts, but to understand, how do I apply this in my role? How do I apply this in interactions with others? And why is it important to me? What's my role? What's my accountability? And how do I make sure that I'm developing relationships with people, that I'm being much more culturally sensitive to others? I think organizations can constantly press learning and development, and people can really be committed to developing their own cultural sensitivity. I have to go back to learning and accountability, and I will say that over and over and over again, because there is this misconception that we as HR professionals really know it all, and we don't. We have the same kinds of challenges as other employees. We have to learn how to be culturally sensitive. We need to learn how to mitigate our unconscious biases, and we have to learn how to make sure that everyone is in a mutually respectful environment, and we have to learn how to resist harassment. And HR professionals need that as much as other employees. Another thing that might have contributed to that is that oftentimes HR professionals find themselves unsupported by senior leadership in other divisions, because oftentimes people don't see or understand the value in the human resources profession, other than find me talent, find me talent. They really don't understand the value and the depth of the HR role. Two that are top of mind. One is a situation that I found myself in, where I was hired into an organization to lead the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, only to find out when I got into the organization that I was the only person in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. It is unfortunate that sometimes an organization will feel as though if I hire a director, if I hire a VP, they can drive this organization to change. However, they don't put resources, which means they're not committed to that change. So one of the challenges that I found is that Organizations will say, yes, we need to have a strategic focus around diversity and inclusion. Yes, let's hire somebody to be responsible for that and drive it. But then they don't put their money where their mouth is. They don't put the resources into driving that change. How did I manage that in that particular situation? Is what I had to do is think about the organization and where they were at in their learning process and in their change process around going from exclusion to inclusion. You have to find where they're at, identify your inroad, and then teach who needs to be taught. In that respect, I had to teach my leaders why diversity was important, why the resources were needed, and then I had to garner resources or share resources with others until I was able to help them understand that there need to be some hiring and placements in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. The second challenge that I came across many times is focus, or too much focus, on analytics. Let's look at the analytics and driving diversity and inclusion according to analytics and action plans that no one is really actioning, so to speak. Analytics are good. Analytics are a point of data. Analytics can help us measure and look at where we are in a specific point in time, but analytics is not the way to drive change. So my solution in that situation, again, was to understand where that particular organization was in their change process around becoming more inclusive and more diverse. And then I had to go inward and teach and get buy-in and really be influential in helping to shift the leaders to a point where they understood the value of a more thorough change process as opposed to just driving by analytics. No, I think analytics are critical. Um, and I think analytics is a necessary, it's a necessary point of data. It tells us something. It helps us to get a picture, a visual of where we are at a particular point in time. Let me give you an example. One of the key and critical things that happens in organizations, and I find with many of my clients now, diversity at the senior levels of an organization is keeping it, finding it, maintaining it is very difficult. You find as you go up the level, up levels of command, or levels of responsibility in an organization, there will be less and less diversity. There will be fewer women, there will be fewer people of color, there's almost never a veteran or a person who is disabled. So what organizations do, if you misuse analytics, then you will drive to analytics and you will be trying to put bodies in seats. That will be your focus. The numbers are off, let's get bodies in seats. However, if you really think more thoroughly about the whole organization and that the analytics are telling you where you're at and are helping you to set a strategic focus as how you want to change those analytics, then the analytics become extremely valuable. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect
So
sense.
analytics are valuable, but you cannot drive change by only doing analytics and looking for people to put people in seats. You have to make sure that you are making your environment as inclusive as possible so that when your HR people are bringing in key and critical talent, that talent finds a home, finds a place, feels a sense of belongingness, feels a sense of value, feels like they're psychologically safe to make changes, to take calculated business risks, and to innovate. That is key and critical to diversity and inclusion. Societal impact, as we can see in current events, there's a lot of bullying, there is a lot of denigrating language, and colleges can do the same thing that I encourage my organizations to do. Make sure that you reinforce your mission, your vision, and your people focus to your students. Help your students to understand what is appropriate behavior and what is not appropriate behavior in the college setting, and help them then to translate that to the workplace. It is critically important that people understand when they leave university how to function appropriately in a workplace environment. That is not something that is regularly taught in a workplace, and people get into internships or get into their first roles and they're just unprepared for those environments. It is critical that colleges and universities also train people to be more culturally sensitive and to increase their cultural competence. How they do that is, again, through learning and accountability. Teaching people to be socially responsible broadly, and responsible for inclusion and diversity and mutual respect in a workplace as well. That is a critical part of learning, as well as concepts. Absolutely. Internships really help students to get their feet wet, to get inside of an organization. And although they're in impression mode during an internship, it gives them an opportunity to get real work experience and to have interaction with professionals. Oftentimes during internships, organizations will provide interns with either mentors or a person to shadow, or different opportunities to learn during the course of that internship. There are many, but three that come top of mind are, first of all, self-awareness, second of all, business acumen, and third of all, talent management. Now let me go into that a little bit. Self-awareness is very important to understand why you want to be an HR professional and what kind of talents, skill sets you bring to the HR profession. Second of all, it's very important that you have business acumen. In other words, that you understand your HR profession, you understand the HR industry, and you also understand the business where you're hired. It's critical that you practice HR in a way that is consistent with that particular business and the needs of that business, because businesses have different needs based upon size, based upon industry, based upon whether it's profit or nonprofit. It's very important to understand the business, to understand the practices and policies of that business, to understand the competitors, the market. It's also important to understand the trends in that business as you begin to really manage your career as an HR professional in that organization. Third of all, talent management is critical. People think of talent management differently. Some people think talent management is really about succession planning. Other people feel as though talent management is about the life cycle of the employee. I'm of the belief that HR professionals really need to focus on the employee experience, from the point that they hire someone until the point that they offboard someone. That entire talent management employee life cycle is very critical. And HR professionals need to be ready to not only do the practice, but also to understand the people and to make sure they're managing key and critical talent correctly and helping the organization to develop future leaders. Take the initiative to increase your cultural awareness, your cultural competence, your cultural sensitivity. Take opportunities to get to know people outside of your particular group of friends. Get to know people who are different than you. Begin to understand the world, the global world more broadly, and also be willing to come outside of your worldview, your belief systems, and your perspectives to understand people's differences and be honoring and respectful, even if someone else's belief systems and worldview are diametrically opposed to yours or different than yours. That's how you become inclusive. That's how you become culturally sensitive, trying to understand others as much as you understand yourself. and being considerate that when you go into the workplace, you want to be an agent of change. You want to be the agent of inclusion and diversity. So practicing that while you're a student and being more inclusive of people in your environment will help to prepare you for that. I am a social psychologist by training and was teaching at the university level and decided I wanted to do something different. And I fell into an HR role that was consistent with social psychology and defaulted. It was a default, it was a fall into, and then the career just began without a plan. That was a mistake on my part that I strongly recommend that people do not do. If you're going to be an HR professional or whatever role or whatever industry or profession you find yourself in, make the decision early to be savvy, intentional, and strategic about your career. It is very critical that you know who you are, what you want, what do you want to be in 2 years, what do you want to be in 5 years, what do you want to be in 10 years. Instead of going from job to job to job, understand why you're going from job to job to job. For me, it was beginning to understand as I got a little further in my career that not only did I need to be ready for each and every new opportunity, I also needed to be preparing for my next opportunity while I was performing in my current role. Also, it's very critical to be prepared, or at least to have a strategy about what will you do with the unexpecteds in your career, the unexpecteds, quote unquote, the things that happen that are outside of your locus of control, the market's impact on the business that you're working in, downsizing, job losses, changes in the finances in the organization, in your personal finances, changes in your family, impacts on your life and on your career that are the quote unquote unexpecteds. You can't know what they are, but you certainly can, in your career strategy, make room for what if this happens, almost like a contingency plan. So for me, the career not being shaped from the beginning was a mistake, and I strongly recommend people shape your career, focus, understand where you're at now, where you want to be, and what do you need to do to prepare to do that.